50 years ago, nobody locked their doors. Not because there were no thieves, but because there was nothing worth stealing except trust, and trust was shared like bread. In the village of Greenwillow, mornings didn't begin with alarms. They began with voices. Women calling children by name, roosters arguing with the sun, and elders sitting outside their homes as if guarding the memories of the entire place. If one child cried, 10 mothers turned their heads. If one house cooked food, the smell belonged to everyone. That was the world Samuel Carter believed would never change. Samuel was the kind of man people listened to without him raising his voice. Tall, dark-skinned, strong hands rough from farming, but gentle enough to lift a newborn like glass. He had 4 children, Michael, Daniel, Sarah, and Rebecca, and in Greenwillow they weren't just siblings. They were a unit. Michael, the eldest, was quiet and observant. He noticed things others missed: a crack in a wall, a lie in a smile. Daniel, just a year younger, was fire. He laughed loudly, fought loudly, loved loudly. Sarah was soft-spoken, always helping their mother Evelyn Carter in the kitchen, while Rebecca, the youngest, followed everyone like a shadow, believing her brothers were invincible. Every evening the family sat on the same woven mat outside their house. Samuel would say the same words every night. "Remember this, wealth is not money, wealth is people." The children nodded, not fully understanding, but believing him anyway. Back then, fights didn't last long. If Michael and Daniel argued, the village elders settled it before sunset. If Sarah cried, someone's aunt, not necessarily her own, wiped her tears. When Rebecca fell sick once, the entire village took turns sitting by her bed, whispering prayers. Blood didn't decide family. Loyalty did. Years passed slowly, kindly. Then the road came. A narrow strip of black cutting through Greenwillow, bringing cars, radios, and stories of places far away. New York became a word people spoke carefully, like a dream that could break if said too loudly. Michael was the first to stare at the road too long. He was 17 when he told Samuel, "There's more than this." Samuel didn't get angry, he nodded. "There is, but remember where you come from." Michael promised he would. Daniel laughed. "If he leaves, I'll follow." Sarah said nothing, but her eyes filled. Rebecca didn't understand why the road suddenly felt like an enemy. Then came the year that changed everything. Samuel fell ill, not suddenly, slowly. Like a tree drying from the inside. The village tried everything. Herbs, prayers, old remedies whispered by women who believed in ancient cures. On Samuel's final night, he called his children close. Michael held his right hand. Daniel his left. Sarah pressed her forehead to his chest. Rebecca cried silently. Samuel's voice was weak but clear. "Promise me something," he said. "No matter how far you go, don't let time make you strangers." They promised. All of them. Samuel died before sunrise. The village mourned like it had lost its spine. For days, food appeared at the Carter house without anyone asking. People sat in silence together. No one rushed grief. But grief changes shape when ambition enters the room. After the funeral, Michael received a letter, an opportunity, a sponsor, a chance to go to New York. Evelyn cried quietly that night. Daniel punched a wall. Sarah packed Michael's bag. Rebecca slept hugging Samuel's old jacket, breathing in what little of him remained. On the morning Michael left, the entire village walked him to the road. Samuel's words echoed in his head. "Wealth is people." Michael hugged Daniel hard. "I'll come back," he said. Daniel forced a smile. "Don't forget us." Sarah slipped something into Michael's pocket, a small cloth wrapped tightly. "What's this?" he asked. "Open it when you feel alone," she said. Rebecca hugged him last. "Don't become someone else," she whispered. Michael laughed. "That's impossible." The bus arrived. As it pulled away, Greenwillow stood still, like it was holding its breath. No one noticed the old man at the edge of the crowd, watching Michael leave with eyes that knew something others didn't. He muttered under his breath, "Some roads don't just take people away, they return debts." Michael didn't hear him. He was already dreaming of New York. And that was the first day the Carter family stopped being one place and started becoming a distance. If you're feeling the weight of this beginning, don't forget to subscribe. Because what happens when the past finally meets New York will change everything you believe about family. New York didn't welcome Michael Carter the way movies promised. It didn't open its arms. It opened its mouth. The first thing he noticed wasn't the height of the buildings, it was the cold, not winter cold, people cold. The kind that slides past you without seeing you, like you're just another shadow trying to survive. Back in Greenwillow, if you dropped something, 5 hands reached down. In New York, if you fell, people stepped around you like the sidewalk owned them. Michael carried one suitcase, 2 shirts, a pair of worn boots, and a promise heavy enough to break his spine. "I'll come back." He told himself that every day. His sponsor was a man named Mr. Harold Whitman, who lived in a tall apartment building that smelled like polished wood and quiet judgment. Harold spoke like someone who had never been hungry. "You'll work," Harold said on the first day, adjusting his cufflinks. "You'll study, you'll stay out of trouble, and you won't embarrass me." Michael nodded, grateful and confused at the same time. Because help in Greenwillow had warmth, help in New York had rules. Michael started working at a small office, cleaning after hours and filing papers in the daytime. At night, he studied. His hands that once held soil now held pencils, shaking from exhaustion. He wrote letters home every week. At first, the replies came fast. Daniel wrote like he spoke, loud even on paper. "Bro, this place feels empty without you. Mom tries to act strong, but I hear her cry at night. I'm working harder. I'll come join you soon. Don't let New York make you soft." Sarah wrote carefully, like she was afraid words might hurt someone. "We miss you, the evenings feel quieter." Mother smiles, but her eyes don't. "I'm keeping the mat outside like before. Come back when you can, please." Rebecca drew pictures because she didn't know how to say loss, a little house. 4 stick figures, a road, 1 figure on the road looking back. Michael kept every paper like it was oxygen, but then something strange happened. The letters started changing, not in handwriting, in weight. Daniel's words became shorter. Less joking, more tired. "Work is heavier now. People argue more. They don't sit together like before. I tried to stop a fight at the well and someone told me to mind my business. Can you believe that? In our village," Sarah's letters got quieter like she was shrinking inside herself. "Mother is worried about money. She says the village is changing. People count favors now, they don't give them." Rebecca stopped drawing big families. Her pictures started showing a house with only 1 figure standing at the door. Michael told himself it was just time, just adjustment. But there was one night, his first real night of loneliness, that broke him. He had worked 14 hours, eaten a cheap sandwich, and climbed the narrow stairs to the small room Harold rented him. The room was barely big enough for a bed and a chair. The window looked at a brick wall, like the world was refusing him even a view. He sat down, shoulders shaking, and remembered Sarah's last words. "Open it when you feel alone." The cloth bundle she had slipped into his pocket. Michael pulled it out for the first time. His hands trembled as he unwrapped it. Inside was a small, old object, a rusted brass key, and a folded note in Sarah's neat handwriting. The note was only 1 sentence. "If the world changes you, this will bring you back." Michael stared at the key. A key to what? There was no address, no explanation, just a key that looked older than he was, like it belonged to a secret. He held it in his palm and felt something worse than loneliness. He felt mystery. The next day, he asked Harold about it casually. Harold's eyes flicked to the key for half a second, a tiny movement most people wouldn't notice. But Michael noticed everything. "That's nothing," Harold said quickly. "Throw it away. New York doesn't have space for old junk." Michael forced a smile. "It's from my sister." Harold's jaw tightened. "I said throw it away." That moment stayed in Michael's chest like a nail. Why would a sponsor care about a key from a village? That night, Michael didn't sleep. He remembered something from the day he left Greenwillow, the old man at the edge of the crowd muttering, "Some roads don't just take people away, they return debts." Michael had laughed then. Now he wasn't laughing. Weeks turned into months. Michael began to earn trust at the office. He learned how money moved like water, quietly, quickly, without emotion. He learned how people smiled while they planned. And slowly, he started to become what New York required, less soft, more silent, more guarded. Back in Greenwillow, the changes became sharper. Daniel wrote less often, and when he did, the ink looked angry. "They're selling land, Mike. People who used to share tools now charge each other." Someone locked the community grain shed. Locked it like we are strangers. Sarah's letters grew heavy with hidden fear. "Mother says we must think of our own now. She says love doesn't feed us. I don't recognize her when she says that." And then came the line that made Michael's stomach drop. "Daniel fought with Uncle Joseph. They don't speak anymore." Uncle Joseph was the man who once carried Daniel on his shoulders across the river when he nearly drowned. The man Daniel used to call second father. How do you stop loving someone who saved your life? Michael sat on his bed, holding the letter, and felt time pulling his family apart like hands tearing cloth. He wanted to run back. But New York had him by the throat. Harold increased the rules. No visitors, no distractions, no time off. And Michael noticed something else too. The sponsor was watching him, not like a mentor watches a student, but like a guard watches a prisoner. One evening, Michael arrived early and heard Harold on the phone in the apartment living room. Harold didn't know Michael could hear through the thin walls. "Yes," Harold was saying quietly. "He's adjusting. The village boy thinks he's here by luck." A pause. "No, he doesn't know about the key, yet." Michael's blood ran cold. He stepped back, careful not to make a sound. Harold continued. "And the others, the brother, the sister." Another pause. Harold's voice lowered. "Good, let time do its work. Families break when distance becomes habit." Michael's hands clenched. Harold wasn't helping him succeed. Harold was helping him separate. Michael returned to his room like a ghost, heart pounding so hard it hurt. He locked the door and pulled out the brass key again. For the first time, he looked closely and noticed tiny letters scratched into the metal, almost invisible. 2 words, GRENWILLOW church. Michael's throat went dry. Why would a key lead to the church back home, and why would Harold know about it? He grabbed Evelyn's latest letter, his mother's letter. It was shorter than usual, and something about it felt wrong. "Michael, you are doing well, don't worry about us, the village is fine. Love, Mom." No mention of Daniel, no mention of Sarah, no mention of Rebecca. Just "the village is fine." His mother never wrote like that. Michael stared at the page until the truth formed in his mind like an ugly shape. Someone else had written it, or someone had forced her to. He felt anger rising, hot, dangerous, the kind New York creates when it teaches you survival over softness. And right then, Michael decided something. He wasn't coming back as the same boy who left. He would return as a man New York had trained. A man who could protect his family the way the village once did. Before he did anything else, he sent a short message to Daniel using a coworker's phone number he had memorized from old letters. Only 3 words. "Don't trust anyone." Then, because he knew this story was only getting deeper, he looked into the camera of his own mind and made a promise. If you're still watching, subscribe because in part 3, Michael discovers what's hidden in Greenwillow's church and why New York wanted the Carter family to forget who they were. Michael didn't sleep that night. New York kept moving outside his window, sirens, footsteps, engines, like the city was reminding him it never waited for anyone. But inside his room, time stood still, heavy with questions that refused to stay quiet. Greenwillow Church. The words carved into the brass key burned into his mind. Why would a simple village church need a key hidden for decades? Why would Sarah know about it? And most importantly, why would Harold Whitman, a man who had never stepped foot in Greenwillow, know about it too? Michael sat on the edge of his bed and unfolded his mother's letter again. The handwriting was hers, but the words weren't. His mother never wrote to avoid names. She believed names carried love. Someone was guiding her hand or standing behind her. That realization did something dangerous to Michael. It took away his innocence. The next morning, he didn't go to work. For the first time since arriving in New York, he disobeyed Harold's rules. Instead, he took the subway to the public library, a place Harold never mentioned, probably because knowledge there was free and unmonitored. Michael spent hours digging through old migration records, donation lists, and scanned documents from small towns that no one cared about anymore. And then he found it. A yellowed newspaper clipping from 1974. Greenwillow Land Trust established, anonymous donor secures village future. Michael's heart pounded. The article mentioned a legal trust set up to protect Greenwillow's land from outside buyers. The donor's name was sealed. The trust's key documents were stored in, of all places, Greenwillow Church, under spiritual guardianship. Michael leaned back slowly. The village wasn't poor by accident. It was protected by design. And someone had spent decades making sure the people forgot. That evening, Michael did something he had never done before. He followed Harold. Harold left the apartment after dinner, coat buttoned tight, moving with purpose. Michael kept his distance, blending into the crowd like New York had taught him. They walked 3 blocks, turned down a narrow street, and entered a private office building with no sign outside. Michael waited, heart hammering, then slipped in behind another man. From the stairwell, he heard Harold's voice through a half-open door. "Yes," Harold was saying. "The Carter boy is becoming curious." A pause. "No, he doesn't understand the full picture, but curiosity is dangerous." Michael held his breath. Another voice answered, calm, older, confident. "Curiosity can be redirected," the voice said. "Just like it was with the others." Michael's blood ran cold. The brother is causing trouble, Harold continued. He's resisting the changes. That's expected, the voice replied. Community bonds don't break cleanly. Apply pressure. What about the church? Harold asked. Silence. Then the voice said slowly, that key should never be used. Michael stepped back, pulse roaring in his ears. This wasn't about him alone. This was about generations. That night, Michael made a decision he knew would change everything. He was going home. Not forever. Not yet. Just long enough to see the truth with his own eyes. Greenwillow looked smaller when Michael returned months later, not because it had shrunk, but because his eyes had changed. The road felt longer. The air felt heavier. The first thing he noticed wasn't the houses, it was the fences. Wooden fences where there had never been any before, doors locked during the day, people nodding instead of stopping to talk. The village that once shared breath now counted distance. Daniel was thinner, harder. When he saw Michael, his face broke open for half a second, then closed again. You came back, Daniel said, like he wasn't sure if it was real. Only for a bit, Michael replied. Where's Mom? Daniel looked away. She doesn't leave the house much. Inside the Carter home, the woven mat was gone, replaced by chairs. Michael felt something crack inside his chest. Sarah hugged him tight but said little. Rebecca stood behind her, older now, eyes sharper than her years. That night, after everyone slept, Rebecca crept into Michael's room. You brought the key, she whispered. Michael sat up. You knew, she nodded. Dad told Sarah. Sarah told me. Told you what? Rebecca swallowed. That one day when people forgot how to love each other, someone would need to remember. Michael's throat tightened. Before dawn, Michael walked alone to Greenwillow Church. The building stood quiet, stone walls holding secrets older than regret. Inside, the air smelled like dust and prayer. He walked to the back, behind the altar, where a wooden panel sat slightly uneven. His hand shook as he inserted the brass key. It turned easily, like it had been waiting. The panel opened to reveal a small metal box. Inside were documents, letters, and a leather-bound ledger. Michael opened the ledger and felt his knees weaken. Names, dates, amounts, land parcels. Every family in Greenwillow had a share. Every child born into the village had a future already secured, education funds, medical funds, emergency funds. The village wasn't poor. It was protected, until someone decided protection was inconvenient. At the bottom of the ledger was a final letter. Samuel Carter's handwriting. Michael's hands trembled as he read. If you are reading this, it means time has done what greed always does, it has erased memory. Greenwillow was never meant to be owned. It was meant to be shared. Protect this truth, even if it costs you family. Michael closed the book, tears blurring his vision. Now he understood why people were being pushed to sell land. Why arguments were encouraged. Why siblings were turning into strangers. Why New York needed Greenwillow to forget itself. As he left the church, the same old man from years ago stood outside, leaning on a stick. You opened it, the man said calmly. Michael nodded. The old man smiled sadly. Then the debt has returned. Whose debt? Michael asked. The man's eyes were sharp. Yours now. Behind them, unseen by Michael, a car idled quietly at the edge of the road. And inside it, someone was already on the phone. He knows, the voice said. Yes, start phase 2. If this revelation shook you, subscribe, because in part 4, Greenwillow's secret reaches New York and the family will be forced to choose between money and blood. Michael didn't tell anyone what he found in the church. Not Daniel, not Sarah, not even Rebecca, because secrets like that don't survive family dinners. They leak through tone, through pauses, through the way hands shake when someone says everything is fine. And Greenwillow was no longer a place where secrets stayed buried. The same day Michael returned from the church, strangers started appearing in the village. Men in clean shoes that didn't know dust. Cars too new for roads that remembered bare feet. Voices that spoke politely but looked at land the way hungry men look at food. They called themselves developers. They called it progress. Michael recognized the language immediately. New York had taught him that words are weapons when used gently. At dinner that night, Daniel slammed his hand on the table. They came to Uncle Joseph today, he said. Offered him more money than he's ever seen. Sarah looked up sharply. What did he say? Daniel laughed bitterly. He asked why now, why after 50 years? Michael felt the room tighten. And, Michael asked carefully, Daniel's jaw clenched. They said the village is underutilized. That it's time to move forward. Rebecca whispered, forward where? No one answered. Their mother, Evelyn Carter, finally spoke. "We should listen," she said quietly. All three siblings turned toward her. Michael stared. "Listen to who?" "To opportunity," she replied. "Times have changed. Love doesn't protect us anymore." Michael heard Sarah's old words echo in his head. "Mother says love doesn't feed us." Daniel stood up. "Dad would never. Your father is gone," Evelyn snapped, louder than she meant to. "And he left us with ideas, not security." Silence fell like a verdict. Michael understood then. This wasn't just a battle between outsiders and the village. It was a battle inside the family. That night, Michael received a call. A New York number. "Harold." "I hear you took a little trip," Harold said smoothly. Michael didn't answer. "That was unwise," Harold continued. "Curiosity tends to complicate things." "I saw the records," Michael said calmly. "The trust, the land." A pause, then Harold sighed. "You weren't meant to." "Why?" Michael asked. "Why erase us?" "Because unity is expensive," Harold replied, "and division is profitable." Michael closed his eyes. "The Carters were never supposed to leave Greenwillow," Harold went on. "But ambition always opens doors we can use." "Use," Michael repeated. "Yes," Harold said. "Your family was respected, trusted. Once you left, the balance shifted." Michael's voice hardened. "You broke the village." Harold laughed softly. "We only encouraged what already exists in humans' greed." The call ended. Michael sat in the dark, understanding something painful and true. New York didn't destroy Greenwillow. Greenwillow let New York inside. The next day, the developers held a meeting. The whole village gathered near the old well, the same place where children once played and elders once settled arguments. A man in a gray suit spoke confidently. "We're offering fair compensation," he said. "Each family decides individually." Michael stepped forward. "No," he said. "This land was never individual." Murmurs spread. The man smiled politely. "That's not how ownership works anymore." Daniel stood beside Michael. "It worked that way for 50 years. Another villager shouted, "We need money." Another voice answered, "We need each other." The argument exploded. Michael watched it with heartbreak, neighbors yelling, families splitting, friendships dying in real time. That's when Sarah spoke. Softly, but everyone heard her. "There is a trust," she said. Michael's heart slammed. "There are documents," Sarah continued, eyes on Michael. "I saw Father's name once, long ago." Gasps rippled through the crowd. The man in the gray suit stiffened. "That's nonsense." Rebecca stepped forward. "It's in the church." The developers exchanged quick looks, too quick. Michael realized too late, they already knew. That night the church burned. Not completely, just enough. Enough to destroy paper. Enough to destroy proof. Michael ran toward the smoke, heart tearing apart. Villagers followed, screaming, crying, blaming each other. When the fire died, the box was gone. So were the documents. Daniel punched a wall until his knuckles bled. Sarah collapsed to her knees. Rebecca whispered, "They erased us." Michael stood still, because they hadn't erased everything. He still had one thing New York taught him to protect, memory, and something else. Back in his bag, hidden deep, was a single photograph Michael had taken with his phone. One page, one signature, Samuel Carter's handwriting, enough to start a war. Michael turned to his siblings. "They want us divided," he said. "That's the only way they win." Daniel looked at him. "And if Mom sides with them," Michael swallowed, "then we choose what family means." That night, Evelyn Carter made her choice. She signed. By morning, half the village had agreed to sell. Greenwillow wasn't falling apart slowly anymore, it was collapsing. Michael packed his bag again. This time, Daniel packed his too. "I'm coming," Daniel said. Sarah hesitated. Rebecca stepped forward. "If this ends in New York, that's where we go." Michael nodded. Because the final truth had arrived, the past and the present were about to collide, and only one would survive. If you're still with this story, subscribe, because in Part 5, New York learns what Greenwillow protected, and the price of forgetting family will finally be paid. New York welcomed Michael, Daniel, Sarah, and Rebecca like it always did, with indifference. The city didn't care that a village was dying. It didn't care that a church burned. It didn't care that blood had turned into contracts. But Michael cared enough for all of it. They stayed in a small apartment in Queens, cramped, loud, nothing like Greenwillow. Daniel slept on the floor without complaint. Sarah cooked simple food that tasted like home. Rebecca sat by the window every night, watching lights instead of stars. And their mother, Evelyn Carter, stayed behind. She had chosen money. That was the truth no one said out loud. The first week in New York, Michael did nothing. No calls, no confrontations, no anger, he observed. Because New York teaches one rule very clearly: if you rush, you lose. Harold Whitman didn't expect silence. By the second week, Michael's phone rang. You're making this difficult, Harold said. Michael smiled slightly. You taught me difficulty is useful, Harold sighed. You have something that doesn't belong to you. The village belongs to itself, Michael replied. That village is already gone, Harold said. What you're holding is a memory. Memories move people, Michael said. Money just moves paper. Harold paused. You're not as naive as you were. Michael ended the call. That same night, Daniel came home angry. I followed the money, Daniel said. The development company, it's a shell, 3 layers deep. Sarah looked up. Who's at the top? Daniel swallowed. Whitman Holdings. Michael nodded. Of course, Rebecca spoke quietly. So Greenwillow was never the goal. Michael looked at her. No, the goal was control. Because land was valuable, but obedient people were priceless. Michael finally moved. He contacted a journalist. Not a famous one, a patient one. A woman named Claire Thompson, known for stories that took years and destroyed empires quietly. Michael didn't beg her. He showed her proof. The photo of Samuel Carter's handwriting. The trust headline, the timeline of land sales, the fire. Claire didn't speak for a long time. Then she said, they've done this before. Michael nodded. We're not special. We're just awake. The article didn't drop immediately. Claire waited. Meanwhile, Harold escalated. Daniel was followed. Sarah's old employer received anonymous complaints. Rebecca was offered a scholarship, quiet, generous, conditional. Divide them again. Michael gathered his siblings. They're pressuring us individually, he said. If we respond separately, we lose. Daniel clenched his fists. Then what? Michael exhaled. Then we become one voice. That night, Michael made a decision that terrified him. He requested a public hearing about land rights, historic trusts, and corporate manipulation. Harold laughed when he heard. A village boy against New York, he said. You'll be crushed. Michael replied calmly, that's why it will work. The hearing room was half empty. No cameras, no drama, just paperwork and tired officials. Michael spoke without shouting. He told them about Greenwillow, about shared land, about trust guardianship, about fire following questions. He ended with one sentence. When you erase community, you don't create progress. You create quiet violence. Silence followed. One official leaned forward. Do you have proof? Michael handed over the photo. Samuel Carter's handwriting. The room shifted. Outside, Harold watched the building from his car, jaw tight. He didn't expect this. That night, Claire's article went live. The villages New York erased, Greenwillow wasn't alone. 5 other communities. Same pattern, same companies, same silence. The city reacted the way it always does when truth gets inconvenient. With denial, then outrage, then fear. Investors pulled back. Investigations opened. Old documents resurfaced. Harold Whitman stopped returning calls. And then the phone rang again. This time it wasn't Harold, it was their mother. I made a mistake, Evelyn Carter said softly. Michael closed his eyes. They promised security, she continued. I didn't know, they promised fear relief, Michael said gently. That's not security. Silence. Can I come to New York? She asked. Daniel looked away. Sarah's hands trembled. Rebecca whispered, does family still mean anything? Michael didn't answer immediately. Because this was the hardest truth of all. Some distances are not measured in miles. They are measured in choices. I don't know, Michael finally said. But the truth is coming, and it doesn't ask permission. That night, as rain hit the windows, Michael received one final message from an unknown number. Stop before you lose everything. Michael typed back only 4 words, we already did. And for the first time since leaving Greenwillow, he slept without dreaming. Because the final confrontation wasn't about land. It was about whether family could survive the truth. If this story still has you, subscribe. Because in part 6, the past and present collide, and one final choice will decide what legacy truly means. The final truth didn't arrive with sirens. It arrived with a letter. Not an email, not a call. A letter, thick paper, official seal, slow words that carried weight. GRENWILLOW Land Trust, status restored. Sale suspended. Investigation pending. Michael read it twice, then handed it to Daniel without speaking. Daniel's breath caught. So it's not gone. It was never gone, Michael said quietly. It was buried. Sarah sat down, hands over her mouth. Rebecca leaned against the window, watching New York rush by like nothing had happened. Because nothing had happened to the city. Everything had happened to them. Within days, the story spread. Other villages stepped forward. Old men found boxes in attics. Women brought faded letters wrapped in cloth. Names appeared where there had once been silence. Patterns formed. Investigations widened. Whitman holdings froze. Harold Whitman resigned for health reasons. No apology, no confession, just disappearance, the way powerful people leave when truth finally reaches their shoes. Greenwillow didn't celebrate, it mourned. Michael flew back alone. The village greeted him with caution now. People stood apart, some ashamed, some angry, some relieved. The church still smelled of smoke. Michael walked inside and placed Samuel Carter's copied page on the altar. "We remember," he said softly. That night the village gathered, not to argue, not to sell, not to accuse, to listen. Elders spoke of the past. Children listened instead of scrolling. Stories returned to mouths that had forgotten how to tell them. But unity did not return easily, because memory saved the land, not the relationships. Daniel stayed in New York. Sarah divided her time. Rebecca chose college over the village, and their mother, Evelyn Carter, arrived last. She stood at the edge of the crowd like a visitor. Michael approached her. "I didn't come to take anything," she said. "I came to say I'm sorry." Michael studied her face, older now, lines deeper. "Sorry doesn't rewind time," he said. "I know," she replied, "but it can stop us from repeating it." Daniel watched from a distance. Sarah cried quietly. Rebecca looked uncertain. That was the moment Michael understood the final lesson Samuel had tried to teach them. Family is not guaranteed by blood. It is renewed by choice. The trust was restored, the land protected. The village survived, but it was not the same village. And that was the twist no one expected. Winning didn't bring the past back. It only protected the future. Years later, Michael stood on a New York sidewalk holding his daughter's hand. "Why did you fight so hard?" she asked. Michael smiled softly. "Because some things don't belong to us alone." "Like what?" "Like home." He never moved back to Greenwillow. Daniel never forgave their mother fully. Sarah never stopped trying to fix what couldn't be fixed. Rebecca built a life that belonged only to her. But every year they returned together, not to pretend nothing changed, but to remember what once mattered. Because time doesn't destroy families, forgetting does. And if you stayed till the end of this story, subscribe, because this wasn't a story about land or money or even villages. It was about how the old world valued people, and the new world prices them. What you choose to protect decides which world you live in.